Hello and welcome, everyone. This week we're going to be chatting briefly. Let me make an adjustment there. Chatting briefly about a topic that I thought was interesting. I actually just heard this morning on a conversation on Three Moves Ahead. It's a strategy gaming podcast. I know it from Rob Zachney, who is part of the Waypoint crew. And I enjoy the discussion because strategy games are something I find particularly interesting. Civilization guy. And so they were discussing briefly, and what I found intriguing was cats have decided that it's a time to hiss at one another. What I found intriguing was their analysis of the integration of strategy elements into many games, and seemingly, I guess one might say, a sinister side that it's taken, because their opinion was in general that it's being shoehorned into other games that don't necessarily need it or benefit from it, simply so that it can be done as a way to increase revenue by selling systems or artificially extending a game. You know, their examples being something like taking superficial base building and making it a focus of something where it wasn't, taking the wrong part of what makes a game like XCOM appealing and applying that elsewhere. And I thought it was somewhat cynical, but probably correct, uh, that developers were looking at this and saying, well, you know, I don't know where the decision would be made exactly, but people crunching numbers decided that this would be good for us, either bullet points in the back of the box or allowing one to sell solutions to artificially created problems. And they were talking about Shadow of War, for example. That's been removed now after the whole loot box explosion that was involved with EA. But it was the idea that we're going to make this game longer and more difficult so that we can then sell you separately the ability to bypass the grind and unpleasant part of it, which makes you then question why you're playing the game. But I think that you get into the feed of addiction, right? I mean, there's something to be said for a game that is appealing and draws you in and makes you want to play more, like Civilization, just one more turn, right? That's where that originated. That's where where it was coined, not where the coin was flipped. That makes no sense. Um, but they look at that and they look at it as a way to generate money, generate revenue, rather than make their game more interesting, more compelling. And in fact, the opposite. They make it unpleasant so that you then spend money, which is the entire idea behind these free-to-play games. They make the levels, I'm sure they're tuned in such a way that most people can't finish it in a timely fashion, or maybe at all, without spending money. But you're addicted. You want to see the game through. And so you're compelled to do it and to continue collecting, and that's a part of it too. It's a pretty sick system in my mind, and these companies employ psychologists, as I understand it. And they employ, not just games, but it's the same idea with social media networks. I just heard conversation on this recently with a person who worked for different companies, but Facebook in particular, TED Talk sharing that this is done intentionally. What you're shown, what's what's the term, cultivated for you, is things to get you to engage. They want to, even if it's outrage, it's better to outrage you and see you invested than to show you something that you would look at it and say, oh, well, that's interesting, because you don't necessarily want to share that. You go about your day. But if they outrage you with what they show you, then you want to interact and share, and it gets you to bring more people in. Same sort of idea, well, same sort of mechanism, in that they want to engage you and addict you, and so that way you'll spread it. Actually, it's not even at all. I don't know what the hell I'm saying there. Interesting side note, somewhat related to the fact that companies use psychologists, and I believe he was an ethicist. So I guess you need an ethicist to get you to do the unethical thing, so that way you know what the right thing to do is. You do the opposite and make money. I mean, that's what it feels like is being done in these games. But you don't have to partake in those. I generally, personally, stay away from free-to-play games. Shadow of War, I played the free demo for it, and it just seemed like it didn't grab me the same way Mordor did. I very much enjoyed Mordor, but Shadow of War didn't do it for me as much. Not to say that I wouldn't play now. My understanding is they pulled all that out again because of that controversy, like I mentioned a minute ago. But the strategy that they've overlaid onto it just didn't really fit. It didn't wasn't really appropriate for what they were doing. And it seems like it was people love this nemesis mechanic. Let's do this and oh, we can make a lot of money instead of this is going to make our game better. This is going to make our game fun. And there's a lot to be said for a tight, constrained experience. Um, and it just seems like it's gone more and more towards length because they're trying to sell games as a service. I don't even know how much the used game market is a concern anymore, but I know that was a big deal for quite a while. There's reports now GameStop is looking for a buyer because they're just not generating as much money as they once did through used game sales. I don't know what the cause of that. That might be an interesting topic for a different week. Whether or not that's decreased used games sales, people are just frequenting there less often. I know personally I do buy quite a few more digital games. Um, I don't go to GameStop because, in my opinion, they're a scam. But that's me. People take advantage and like it. That's fine if that's their thing. I would rather hold on to my game than get pennies on the dollar. And I wouldn't buy from them anyway. But anyway, that's enough rambling on this topic for this week. I'm sure we'll be talking about this more in the future because it's something that I personally take issue with and also find interesting to see what companies are doing to try to increase revenues without necessarily increasing the price of games, and what that means for gaming as a whole, and maybe how things should change and how indie developers impact that. Of which I do work on an indie game in my free time, all 5 minutes of it, uh, as part of an indie company. And what does that mean in general for gaming, for things moving forward? We've already seen that consolidation, right? But I've now said goodbye at least once, probably more, so I'm going to stop rambling and start stuttering. So if you want, as always, like, subscribe, listen, watch, send smoke signals to your friends telling them to come check us out. And by us, I mean me at candivore.com. You can find more videos here and more of my writing about such goodies as Dairy Queen in particular, because I do those reviews for the Impulsive Buy, and just other junk food and things of that nature. I'm also on Instagram, Candivorous Rex. You can find me there. You can find me once in a while on the tweeting place, sending out bird whistling. Yeah, so anyway, I hope everyone has a good evening, and I will talk to you next week.